Welcome to Ducks on the Pod, a baseball podcast with your hosts, Matt Welker and Jake Mosley. Welcome back, everybody, to the pod. We are Ducks on the Pod. My name is Matt. This is Jake. Jake, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Let's get into another division, huh?
Oh, hell yeah, brother. All right, today, last time we went over AL West. If you hadn't listened to that, go ahead and do so. That way you can kind of get to know us a little bit more, get to know our takes on certain baseball players, certain teams. But today, we are going over the AL East. Jake, what are your thoughts on your overarching thoughts on this division coming into this year?
Coming into this year, I think it's probably pretty top-heavy, mostly by two teams, the Yankees and the Orioles. I think they're both getting there in different ways, and that I think there's some good storylines kind of throughout the division to get into today.
Yeah. See, I kind of disagree. I think it's just going to be a rock fight. Like you look at standings projections. Yeah. If you look at standing projections, the predicted fifth place team is within 9 games of the predicted first place team.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
Yeah. I don't like these projections anyway. All right. So like we did in the last episode, we're going to go through in reverse order from last year's standings. So worst to first, starting with your Toronto Blue Jays. Go ahead, brother. Lead us off.
Yeah. So I know we talked a little bit in episode 1, episode 0, whatever you want to call it, about some of our top signings this offseason. So we covered the Blue Jays a little bit through that because my favorite high-end value signing was Anthony Santander for the Blue Jays. So obviously I think their lineup looks a lot better this year with that addition. I know we briefly touched about it in the other podcast as well, or the other episode, that George Springer, getting a little old, but hasn't really shown signs of slowing down. Obviously, Vladdy's Vladdy. I expect him to continue to be really one of the top players in the league at his position there. And then we talked about a little bit Bo Bichette and that he had a huge down year last year. I expect that to turn around this year. So really, they have a good top 4 in their lineup. After that, I think it falls apart a little bit. I think the Andres Gimenez addition this offseason coming over from Cleveland was a good add, really just adding a little bit of supporting help to those top 4. Right now, he's projected to hit 7th in their lineup, but I just think he's a good, solid player. Not anything that moves the needle as far as they're all of a sudden a contender in the division necessarily. But I think it kind of buys them the first half of the year to continue to figure out what they have and if they keep this core together or not.
Yeah. And as our favorite topic, elite defender as well.
Yeah, he is. We'll see if that turns them into anything. I don't think it will.
No.
Their rotation, they added Scherzer. Obviously, that could be one of the great signings if he's able to stay healthy, and he's still Max Scherzer. He is over 40 years old now, so can't be too surprised. Can't put too much stock into that. He's got 16 years of MLB service time on that arm too. So the guy knows how to pitch, obviously. Their starting rotation, I don't think it's very good. It projects out the stats, I guess, and projections this year say that they should be pretty decent. I just have never been a big believer in Jose Barrios. I think he's got some good stuff. I also think he gets hit hard pretty often, too often. And then Chris Bassett, I've never been a fan of either. Just kind of more of the eye test than stats. But I don't think
since he took a line drive off the face.
Oh, easy now. You think that shook some cobwebs out?
Maybe.
No, I just
that was a scary play.
That was very scary. Yeah, I just think as a whole, their rotation, it's old. I don't expect them to be able to shut out other teams in this division, and I don't think, despite the top 4 in their lineup being pretty solid, I don't think they're able to really stay in contention long enough to consider being buyers at the deadline or anything like that. So I think most likely scenario, they fall apart this year. The core goes elsewhere, and they move on to kind of the next phase of the franchise here.
Did you say most likely scenario or worst case?
No, I think
Obviously,
that's the
that
most
is worst
likely.
case, but
Yeah, I think that's the most likely scenario. I don't see them competing at all.
wow. See, I wouldn't say I wholeheartedly disagree, but I feel like Bo has to turn it around this year and
Mhm.
be a lot better. Um, just because of what we've seen of him in the past. I mean, the guy's unreal, and was just so bad last year. Like, I believe we talked about this in one of the other episodes, but in 2023, his batting run value is 81st percentile, which was good for 17 added runs over average. And then last year, he wasn't even qualified, but he in that not qualifying and only half the season, his batting run value was -6. Like, so he just got so bad compared to his 2023 season, in which he, I believe, hit over 300, and his expected batting average was even higher with a 500 slug or expected slug of 500. Like, he OPS the last 2 years, he hit 802, 814, and then last year it was 599. Like, that's just such a huge difference. You got to think that he's bouncing back and getting back to those previous 2 years form. Well, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. Like, I think Bo Bichette bounces back for sure, but realistically, I think you need like 12 or so hitters in your lineup that are solid, that are good and
You only have 9.
healthy. Well, I know, but just over the terms of the year, come on, you know what I'm
I know.
saying.
I'm just kidding.
Uh, yeah, I think you need probably like 12 like good solid players. I think they have about six. So I just don't think they have like the back end of this lineup is not exciting one bit. I think you can kind of just work through the top, try to avoid giving up the 3-run home run to these guys and get your
Yeah.
outs elsewhere in the lineup. And I don't think that translates to a whole lot of wins.
Yeah. How do you feel about a lot of their, like, I guess I'll call it complimentary pieces? Like, I know you touched on Andres Jimenez, but like the Will Wagners, the Nathan Lukes, the Davis Schneiders of this roster, like I feel like they could do stuff, but they're unknown. Well, Davis Schneider's played enough that he's at least somewhat known, but like those three, and I don't know who Leo Jimenez is, but he's also listed on their team and with only 90 days of service time. Like, if they have any sort of injuries, they're kind of screwed because they don't really have the greatest prospects waiting in the wings to come up.
Yeah,
Like, yeah. I mean, all of their bench, David Schneider's rated the best at 224. Like, I haven't really looked at other teams to figure out if that's good or not, but I can't imagine it is.
yeah, I'm not too excited about them. They're like Will Wagner is going on 27. He has 49 days of service time. So, and he's an 18th round pick. Like, I don't know what they're expecting out of him, but I don't expect a whole lot.
Yeah.
Um, Nathan Lukes is going on 31 and he has 145 days of MLB experience. So, I don't think these are guys that they're expecting to step in and be able to carry a meaningful load if anything happens to, say, a Bo
Yeah.
Bichette who has struggled with injury in the past.
You know what I just noticed about this team too? Looking at Fangraph roster resource, they don't have outside of Jeff Hoffman, which I don't know if you actually mentioned his name earlier, but
I did not.
uh, great addition for this year. Although I've had my ups and downs with the man, just giving his time with the Reds. There's
Move
number
on.
one. Um, but they don't have a single person listed that was a first round draft pick of their own, other than Jeff Hoffman. So, I mean, you could kind of argue with me here saying that like Vlad and Alejandro Kirk, but they were international free agents.
Right.
But Jeff Hoffman, which going back to him, he was drafted first round by them. Obviously, he's played for a couple other teams since, but he's the only person on their team that was drafted out of the first round by them. They've got other first rounders, but they were drafted by other people and they required them either free agency or trade. But that's just crazy to me,
Yeah, it's
especially
hard.
when you look at another team that's in this division. where it's
Exactly.
like up and down the board. It just says their team.
Exactly. Like they've hit on a couple of guys. Most teams hit on a couple of guys when you draft somebody high or pay a lot in the international pool. Good things
Yeah,
tend to happen. You know, at least some of the time, they're not getting anything out of guys who they shouldn't really expect to be good.
yeah,
I don't know. They're very meh to me. I think they could be excited. Like they're still an exciting team to watch because they have some really good players. I don't think they have the
oh
depth
yeah,
at all to like be a complete team and complete enough in this division where you have the Yankees and the Orioles. I know you think you're a little higher on the Red Sox than I probably am. Uh, I just I don't know how they possibly stay close enough long enough, and with their current like organization setup, I don't really see how they can start shipping prospects off or something to help supplement this core that's in
yeah.
the MLB level right now.
So one player I did forget about, I kind of forgot about Dalton Varsho, but because he's currently listed as injured,
Yep.
but I was looking him up earlier. It sounds like he should be mostly ready by the start of the season. Um, I really like him. I know you like him. Stud of a center fielder. Dude makes some absolute acrobatic catches out there.
Yeah.
But then all right. So I was also technically kind of wrong. There is another first round draft pick, and it's Alek Manoah.
Oh,
So, so
so it's
we
so
don't need to
exciting.
necessarily discuss him,
Let's not
but
go down that road.
it
Oh,
seemed like he was starting to turn it around, and then he got UCL surgery. So, but we'll see.
he's had an interesting career,
Yeah,
to say the
he's a
least.
big boy.
No,
All
like
right.
Varsho can go catch it. For some reason, the Blue Jays always have a guy in center field who is just highlight reel catch after highlight reel catch.
Yeah.
Hasn't turned into anything. I don't expect it to turn into anything this year.
So the only other things I have to add. So there were some key departures. Jordan Romano, he didn't pitch a whole lot last year, but he was very good for them
Yeah.
to start his career. And then just there's kind of a mixture of other useful relievers in Genesis Cabrera and Ryan Yarbrough, but they're gone. Yarborough is still a free agent, so they could go get him again. I don't know, but and then as far as prospects, they do have two in the top 100. They're at 82 and 87 respectively. Obviously, they're their top two prospects then. But you got Jake Bloss. He's a starting pitcher. He's kind of the sixth man in the rotation right now, but he's in AAA. Uh, they traded for him last year, so another guy that they didn't draft. Um, but he's pitched in the bigs for 3 games with Houston and didn't do too hot. But he's a guy that can come up and help to replace any of these 5 guys if they start to flounder off. But I do like their rotation. Um, and then there's a guy named Aurelvis Martinez, second baseman. He played for 1 game for them last year, and he went 1 for 3. And then 2 days later, he got hit with an 80 game PED suspension. So who knows if he'll be coming up this year to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
All
they
right.
could turn into useful players, of course. Anything can happen with prospects, but they're not coming to save the day by any means, I don't think.
No. Yeah, like they could be good. They could come up and help, and honestly, could be the MVP of this team. But I don't see this team winning the division by any means. So,
They're not being the MVP of a team with Vladdy on there.
oh, I mean,
No chance.
fair, but can't say never.
I know.
All right, let's move on to the Red Sox. Oh yeah, coming in fourth in the division last year. I'm sorry, the
Yeah,
Rays, not the
yeah.
Red
Don't
Sox. The
don't skip
Rays.
over my squad here.
Yeah, my bad, my bad, my bad. All right, well, if they're your squad, kick us off.
Yeah. So first of all, park change.
Yeah.
Tropicana is not.
Oh,
Yeah,
all
Tropicana is
right.
not ready to go.
Yeah, sit up, everybody. Let's listen to this park drive. Then
I know. Well, so I know. Like we went down to Tampa ish area,
yeah,
and the place like some spots are still decimated. Obviously, wishing that area well and getting back from the hurricane, but the Trop is not ready to go. And honestly, that's a blessing for everybody else in the MLB, including the Rays, because that place is miserable to watch a baseball game at. Just no environment whatsoever. So
no,
I'm thankful that they're on the move, albeit to a minor league like spring training facility. It's been used for both in the past. Um, and hopefully there's enough fans to kind of fill it out and actually create an environment at a Rays game, which I think would be cool. So kind of looking forward to this change on that aspect. It is outside, so they will have Mother Nature to contend with. Um, and what I found was interesting is it's been the spring training facility of the New York Yankees.
Sure is.
So in their division, and the ballpark is set up to have very similar dimensions as Yankee Stadium.
Isn't it called like George H. Steinbrenner Field?
It's Steinbrenner, yeah. It's named after Steinbrenner Field. So obviously they're going to stay local in Tampa Bay, which is good for them. However, the park is going to play probably a lot different than Tropicana. Domes historically are more pitcher friendly than outdoor stadiums, so you kind of have that shift. And then if you think about Yankee Stadium, thinking about the dimensions there, you have a very short porch in right field.
Yeah.
Collects a lot of home runs, a little deeper to center, a little deeper to the left than what the Trop is currently set up at. So looking at the Rays, of course, my
is this field set up like Yankee Stadium? I know a lot of spring training parks kind of do that.
It replicates like dimension wise. Obviously, Florida versus New York is going to be different, especially different times of year and stuff. No, but when you have a short porch in right field, you would think that would help left-handed power bats. In their projected starting lineup, they have two kind of everyday lefties in Lau and Lowe, I believe. I don't know which one's which. I believe it's Josh Lowe and Brandon Lau, but
I think
don't come at me if I'm wrong. And so
not related.
Brandon Lau is like a traditional like pole fly ball lefty hitter. I think he gets the biggest bump from just the field upgrade. Josh Lowe, more of a like balanced type hitter. I'm sure he'll benefit a little bit, but nothing too crazy. The rest of their lineup is mostly righties as far as guys who they're expecting to have, everyday at bats.
Like everyday role, yeah.
Yeah. So deeper to center, deeper to left might negatively impact those guys. However, you have Junior Caminero, who I don't know if you've seen some of those highlights, but that dude's got light tower power.
Oh, yeah. And then took 55 seconds to round the bases.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually watched that clip before we started this, like when I was doing my research. This is the first time I've noticed this, and I haven't seen anybody point it out, but apparently it was on a 104 mile an hour pitch.
Yeah, I'd be that high too.
If you watch the clip, that's what it shows the speed gun. It's 104.
Yeah, they're probably running hot. No chance some guy in that league is throwing. I
was going to say, how have we never heard of this guy?
Exactly. You haven't because he's not actually doing that. But still impressive nonetheless. Dude's like a top tier prospect. Right now he's set to hit third come opening day. So we'll see how he pans out. I'm excited to watch him, obviously. The rest of this lineup, they're kind of feisty. I'll let you kind of get into the rest of the roster here and then come back to me because I got a little tidbit if you don't hit on it.
All right. So in my research on every team, basically I wanted to look at ads, departures, and key prospects. So the ads this year, they're not really anything crazy. They did add Danny Jansen, who I believe this is now his third AL East team. They did add Eloy Jimenez and my boy, one of my favorite players, Ha-Seong Kim, who I believe is currently hurt. I don't know when he's supposed to come back. He got shoulder surgery on his labrum in October. I thought I remember seeing that he was not going to be ready for opening day, but I didn't look into that, so I'll have to get back on that. But then key departures, there really were none. I forced myself to pick a name, so I put Tyler Alexander, and he had 100-plus innings, so I guess I'll say he's a key departure. But then they do have a very good shortstop waiting in the wings to come up, Carson Williams. He is number 9 on the MLB list. So obviously, he is number 1 on the Rays list. He did struggle in Double A last year, but he appears to be solid. So I don't know if he would make it up this year. But I think they're just going to give him some more time. So I can't imagine he's going to be on their opening day roster. Yeah, they added 2 relievers, but they're like middle of the game kind of guys. Do I have anything else I want to add? Not really. I mean, I don't
You just
love
don't sound very excited.
Christopher Moreau, huh?
You just don't sound very excited about this team.
No, this team's never exciting because it's just names you don't know that you have to look up. They got rid of a Rosarena, and now their team's just boring. Like the only really, really good player on their team, which you could say Caminero, but like I would say for the most part, unproven just because he's so young. Yandy Diaz, which I think it's strange that a first baseman's hitting leadoff for them, but because you just don't see that up very often, and he's not fast. But then the person that does get me really excited is Shane McClanahan.
Yeah.
And the rest of their rotation is pretty solid. They're all ranked within the top 100. Drew Rasmussen's listed as the 6th starter, but I don't know how much they'll actually go through with that. But then kind of going back to the Blue Jays, there's not too many people that are drafted by them, at least in the first round, that are on their squad. So you do have Shane McClanahan and Josh Lowe. They do have other people that they did draft or sign in free agent, international free agents, but I mean that's how they operate. They trade away their prospects the moment you start to hear about them and get more. So that's all I got on them.
Yeah, I'll first start with like their rotation are like they got studs all over the
Yes.
place if they're healthy. So I'm excited about that. I think they can keep things competitive. Uh, Obviously, you need some contributions from some unlikely sources in this lineup to really like start talking about the division. So I don't necessarily expect that, although Junior very well could turn out to be like a rookie of the year type player in terms of like his raw talent. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think there's a lot of upside just in the lineup there. Like you're getting a 3-hitter if things go well right off the bat. And then one guy I wanted to talk about. What do you know about Johnny DeLuca?
I know that name.
Yeah, well, he's got a year of service time, but I don't think anybody knows about this guy really.
No. Drafted the
Cool. Let's
25th
go.
round from the Dodgers.
Exactly. Let's go to school. All right. So he came over in the Tyler Glasnow trade. It's kind of
Oh, okay.
yeah. He was kind of like the second guy, if you will. Ryan Pepio, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
He was kind of like
Pipio.
he was the guy who like they were really after, but they end up with this dude, Johnny DeLuca. Like you said, 25th round pick,
It's got a wild
and
spot page.
well, let's go over the minors statistics here. He hit
Let's hear it.
271 in his career in the minors, right? So pretty good average. Uh,
Yeah.
he also hit 67 home runs in 304 games and just over 1,300 at bats. So about 2 seasons
It's
worth.
pretty good.
He's hitting 271 with like a 30 plus home run upside. On top of that, the dude had 59 stolen bases, only caught 5 times. So he can
Yeah.
hit for average.
He's 98th percentile in sprint speed on
Yeah,
Savant.
he can run. He can hit for power. And oh, by the way, he only has 219 strikeouts in those 304 games.
It's not too bad.
OPS almost 900, slugging over 500. Like this guy's got tools. And right now he's projected to hit 8th in their lineup. If he turns out he has very little like MLB at bats, and what he has had, it's been inconsistent and
Yeah,
whatever.
he had
You haven't seen
300
it, not a
last
big
year,
number.
and numbers are poo poo.
Yeah. Even that, right? Like I did a double click, if you will, into that. Like, all right, you hit 271 in the minors. A lot of times when you see that, like a guy hit like 400 in like single A and stuff, and just like tore up the lower levels. Um, AAA last year, he hit 305, which is actually better than his career minor league stats. He had 9 home runs in 209 plate appearances. So the powers translated. Even to the MLB level, he had 8 home runs last year. Well, actually, I don't know if they're both last year. He does technically have 2 years in the majors.
He had 6 last year, 2 in 2023.
2 in 23. Perfect. Thank you. He only hit 222 in the majors, whatever. But like his AAA stats are on par or better with the minor league stats that I really focused on, just because it's a bigger sample size. So the guy's got tools. I'm like always looking for some of these like bad, unexciting teams in a way to like, especially like how the Rays are built. They're going to pitch very well. And if you lay out like what's the optimal way for them to perform well, it's behind their starting pitching staff.
Yeah.
So looking for something a little bit exciting, because watching a bunch of gems by pitchers that aren't in competitive ball games isn't necessarily fun all the time. Watching Johnny DeLuca play this year is going to be a focus of mine, just to get me through the dog days of the summer or something. Just kind of do an occasional check on the guy, see if he's panning out like I could see. Definitely a dude I'm rooting for, because as a 25th round pick, I mean, why wouldn't you root for the guy? And he just seems like he'd be an exciting player to watch. So
we'll have to. I just looked it up. They are in Cincinnati this year, so we'll have to go watch your boy Johnny.
all right, yeah, he better be
boy
healthy.
Johnny.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right. Do I have anything else to add about the Rays? I don't believe I do.
Please no. Eloy Jimenez is there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I had him as a key ad.
Yeah, random.
Yeah, it was kind of a joke when I said key ad, because they didn't really add a whole lot other than Ha-Seong Kim.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's not in their 40. Not that that really matters, but he is projected by Fangraphs to make the roster. So we'll see how that goes. The guy's flashed some good ball in the past. Didn't have a great year last year,
it's
but
over. Just you'll never hear about him again.
No. I didn't realize he was originally signed by your Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, I think it was the Quintana trade.
Ah, okay.
I was sad when we let him go, and now he just can't stay healthy and is just
yeah. All right, now let's flip on over to the Red Sox. Let me get rid of my Rays information here. You know what? Let's keep on the roll of you starting on the team. Have at it. Okay. A lot of key ads.
Yeah.
Great. Actually,
I'll talk a lot.
Actually, this is. Actually, you know what? I'm taking this one. Screw you, pal.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
All right. So
go for it.
Your 2025 Red Sox. A lot of key ads, a lot of key departures. That's kind of why I just robbed this from you. 3 fantastic ads. Well, I'd say I'll call it 2.5, because one could be a bust, whatever. And then some reliever ads. So you got Garrett Crochet that they brought over in a trade, primarily for Kyle Teal. I'll give it that. He was a high prospect for them. I believe I brought that up when I was analyzing this trade in our first episode. But then within the last week, they also signed Alex Bregman. And then they also have Walker Buehler slated in to round out. Well, I guess he's listed as 4th, but to be in their rotation. I actually really like that signing. I've always really liked Walker Buehler. I know the guy gets hurt like crazy, but when healthy, dude is an absolute just gem of a pitcher. Just shoves batters back to the dugout. But then they also added Aroldis Chapman and Justin Wilson. I know a lot of people probably don't know who Justin Wilson is, but he's a pretty steady lefty reliever. He did spend some time in Cincinnati, but he also was with the Yankees. Good. He's a pretty solid reliever. But then the key departures, they had Tyler O'Neill leave, your favorite guy. I'll let you potentially comment on that if you'd like. But they also lost. They also lost Nick Pivetta, who has been very good for them as well. Kenley Jansen, shout out Carousel, and Chris Martin, who I believe went to the Rangers and is their new closer most likely. So a lot of a lot of departure. Do you think that do you think they won with the ads and departures? Well, and then they also, I guess we should mention too, they did make it a stab to try to go get Juan Soto. Obviously, ultimately failed on that, but I feel like they pivoted and made good moves outside of that. So I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I don't think they necessarily got better. I like the moves, like in a one for one vacuum. Obviously, the Garrett Crochet signing is huge. I think their starting staff primarily, but pitching staff as a whole, was a little bit thin and really needed to be carried by the top guys in that um, on that staff, like Tanner Hawk. I think they added depth there, really just kind of opened the door for playing the hot hand, letting the manager make decisions, and kind of just get the feel for the ball club. So in that aspect, I like it. But at the end of the day, I look at the lineup and I see Duran and Devers as being like really, really good players. Obviously, I know we talked a lot about Bregman already previously.
Yeah.
I get it; he's good. I don't think he's as good as the money is, and I
Yeah.
kind of feel like they ended up there because they didn't get Juan Soto, and it's just like settling for like let's just put something on the field.
Yeah.
I don't
I
think
think
their
outside of
lineup
going back
like
to Houston, though, he wanted to come to Boston.
yeah for
He also
sure,
has like
and
the greatest OPS in Fenway history at Boston. If you didn't know that,
does he
it's
really?
crazy.
No,
Yeah,
I
his
didn't.
OPS is like 1.2 or something like that
All right,
in
good for him.
Fenway.
Maybe it's a match made in heaven. I know we talked about it, and like we both wanted him to end up for him being a good player in Boston.
Yes.
I just don't think that like the ad of Alex Bregman all of a sudden turns this lineup into like one of the best in baseball.
Yeah. I'm curious what they
So
do defensively because, well, if you had more to add right there, go ahead because I'm kind
uh,
of shifting to prospects after that.
no, all I was going to say is like I think they're good. I don't think they're great. I think they most likely come in third in this division. I could see them coming in fourth. I could see the Rays if that starting staff stays healthy, kind of squeaking by them. I think those two teams are going to be competitive, and then I think the Orioles and the Yankees are top tier. So I
Yeah.
know
So you've
where do
got
you
like
stand
three
on that,
tiers
I
here.
guess.
Um,
Yeah.
as you alluded to when we first started, I'm a little higher up on the Red Sox than it sounds like you are. Um, and I think it's mostly because of prospects. So this actually is also a nice segue. Um, so as of right now, they have MLB's number 2, 7, and 12 prospects. So obviously those are their top 3 prospects, all of which are projected to come up this year. Like Christian Campbell was most likely going to be starting at second base, or at least on the bench, if they didn't get Alex Bregman. Um, but as of right now, all 3 of these guys are slated to start the year, at least as the Fangraphs projection is. They're all slated to start the year in AAA. Well, maybe not AAA, but at least not on the actual team. Um, and I'm looking right now. It doesn't. I don't think any one of the 3 are on the 40 man. So they're going to have to make some interesting cuts as far as the season goes. Like I'm assuming they could probably do that pretty easily with their bench guys, but uh, it's a wild move, I think, to not have either one of those 3 on your 40 man at the moment. They are non-roster invites to spring training. Maybe they'll get the nod out of spring training. I don't know, but it is an exciting time to be a Red Sox fan because of those 3. Um, but then you've also got some guys in this lineup that are no longer prospects, like a Tristan Casas, Jaron Duran. Like it's nice for them to see that they're actually getting things done. Oh, and Rafaela, that they're actually getting their prospects into the bigs and getting them into the lineup and winning with them. Um, I'd like to see. I'm very curious as to what they do defensively because as far as who plays where, because I know Devers, I believe, doesn't rate very well at third, and so they're like obviously Bregman, I believe, won the Gold Glove last year. However, he has already said that he'll gladly move to second, and it sounds like they're definitely going to try that out. Um, But I don't know, because if you then put Bregman at third, then you still have Story at short. Devers probably wouldn't play second, but you'd probably DH him. But then what do you do with Masataka Yoshida? Like, you got to either trade him or get rid of him. And it sounds like pretty much every scenario defensively that you go through, Yoshida's the odd man out and likely gets pushed off of DH. So I'm very, it'll be an interesting year to see what happens with all that. And just like, and they just have a whole bunch of other stories too. Like, no pun intended. Trevor Story, the guy just constantly gets injured. He was in absolute tears that last time he got injured. I felt really bad for him. But like, I know he's 32, but that's still not that old. Like, he could very well just come back and be the old Trevor Story and continue to be one of the best shortstops in the league as far as defensively, and then could add some nice offense to their spot in the 6 hole. I mean, the only real hole I see in this lineup, I guess I don't see Story as a whole just because I'm still high on him, but like just Wong and Rafaela at 8 and 9. But that's really the only thing I see with it. But like, their rotation, great, pretty much all first round picks. I actually did see today that Cutter Crawford, who's slated as their 6th rotation right now, he from start 3 last year, he's been dealing with knee soreness and just kept pitching through it, and then had the most starts of anyone in the AL, potentially the MLB, last year. So I don't know if that's a good thing that he was just pitching through all that and still was decent and could go the distance, or if that's like a kind of a nerve-wracking thing that you're like, well, if this guy's ever hurt, is he ever not going to say anything and then it gets worse? I don't know. But he is a guy that I like to look at some savant stuff on him, because he's got good stuff, but his numbers aren't there. So it's an interesting one to look at.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. There's two main things that I'm looking for in this team for spring training mostly is what is the starting five on their pitching staff. Right now they have kind of 6 starters. So who's the odd man out? Is it that they just get kicked to be a long reliever, or are they AAA? Because they all have like significant MLB service time, so like somebody's losing out there. So I'll watch that, and then also the performance of the prospects that you mentioned. I think they're a little bit further away. I think it's probably a next year thing for the most part. Like maybe like post All-Star break, you see
it
one
could
of
be
the
like
guys
a
or something.
playoff push, something like that.
Right.
Or you trade away Yoshida and call 2 of them up. I don't know.
Yeah, you could. I don't know. That's just like a storyline that I'll watch with the Red Sox throughout the year. As far as the defensive alignment, I saw the other day that they're still open. They don't have anything decided yet, so I expect a bunch of like potentially funky lineups in spring training. So just kind of getting a read and following that storyline as well might be interesting. Although I care significantly less about that and where they are. Just get the bats in there. I know.
Yeah,
We've
that's
covered
all we
it
care
like
about
in
in this
every
pod.
episode. Yeah.
But I mean,
So
you still have to play the field. You can only have 1 DH, so you still have to play the field. So
yeah,
you've got to slot in
yeah,
somewhere.
I get it. I get it. It's just I like it. It will be interesting to see where they end up. I don't really care. I don't have an opinion on who should be playing what position. What I care
I don't know
about
if
is
Bregman's ever
who's
really
your starting
played
staff.
second either. Yeah.
Yeah, he can figure it out. Who's your starting staff, and do these like top of the line prospects? How close are they? That's what I want to know.
I think it's
Besides
crazy
that,
that
I'm good.
Aroldis Chapman is still good.
Yeah. He's just
I'm
built like a absolute like phenom.
yeah. Why can't I? Oh, I spelled his name wrong. I'm also excited to watch Liam Hendricks again. That guy's
Yeah,
exciting. He didn't pitch at all
yeah, he
last
is.
year.
No, he's a hothead. Love it.
Yeah.
One of the best mic'd up moments ever. Oh, don't worry, the mic's not working. Is it?
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, you have to look that up. It's a funny one. Um, are you ready to move on to the Orioles, or do you got more?
No, I'm good.
Sorry. Let's move on to the Orioles then. I'll let you start this one then. Actually, this is another huge key adds and key departures as well, but I'll let you get after it.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's kind of the same makeup of the team. Obviously, you have Santander out. I'll let you kind of get more into the adds um, and subtractions, but you're replacing Santander with Tyler O'Neill. So I think for the most part, it's the same lineup. This is another ballpark, though, where we have a little bit of a change. They are bringing in left field. So a couple years ago, they moved the left field fence back
Yeah,
and
after they just moved it back.
raised it, and all of a sudden it became like this huge like pitcher friendly park because you had to hit it like 400 to straightaway left field
Yeah.
to get it out. So this year they're moving it in anywhere from
Do you know how far they're moving?
anywhere from like 14-ish feet to 26 feet depending on where. So what they're doing is they're taking their bullpens out in left center. They're taking that wall and just kind of extending it further into left field, which is bringing it in because they used to have a kind of a nook that was deeper over by the splash zone. So they kind of have like this pseudo like short porch now in left center because of the wall coming in. It's also lower. I think it's 8 feet high now in straightaway left field and like 7 feet high in left center. So pretty much like all in all, last year you had to hit a ball like anywhere from I'm reading 384 to 398 to get it out in the left field, left center field area. Now that distance is 375 ish. Kind of across the board in terms of like launch angle and whatnot. So it's, pretty significant difference. It's taking warning track fly balls and turning them into wall scraping home runs. So there's obviously like a big advantage to hitters there.
If you look at a lot of guys, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to make sure we were still talking about that wall. If you look at a lot of guys' baseball savant pages where you scroll down and see the like expected home runs by park, it's crazy how many times like you'll see that if a guy actually hit like 9 or 10 last year, when you look at the Orioles, it'll say like of those 9 or 10, like one would have been out at Camden. Like it's just crazy. And then nobody else is like anywhere close to one. The lowest then is probably like 5 or 6.
They turned. I don't know if they didn't look at the data or something. Like I don't know what happened when they moved that thing back because it used to be a like slightly hitter friendly park, and then they turned it into like at least left field like one of the more pitcher friendly parks, and really knocking down home runs. So it's an exciting team. I'm excited for them to have a little bit more excitement in the games with a little more power over there, and then. They have Tyler O'Neill now, who is a righty, so he'll certainly benefit from that. Not that Santander didn't, because Santander is a switch hitter, but they kind of offset his departure with the Tyler O'Neill addition.
Yeah. Just a very quick snippet in my whole expected home runs by park. So just because this guy's a savant fun page to look at, going back to Isaac Paredes. So he hit 19 home runs last year. The second lowest total for home runs would be Lone Depot Park, the Marlins Park, and it would have knocked it down to 11. If he would have played for the Orioles last year, it would have knocked it down all the way down to 6.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So of his actual 19 home runs last year, 6 would be home runs at Camden Yards at Oriole Park. Long name. So I kind of alluded to this earlier. I said that there is a team in this division that it's fun to look at their roster resource page because it's just 7 of their starting 9, at least as they're projected versus right-handed pitchers, were all drafted by them. 5 of which were first-round picks. 2 of those 5 were 1-1 in Adley Rutschman and Jackson Holliday. Then you got Gunnar coming in the second round, and then my boy, who I absolutely love, Cedric Mullins, being the 13th round. But then it's also fun that they've got a guy on their bench, Heston Kierstad. He was drafted in the first round. Then you look at their rotation, you got Grayson Rodriguez, who was drafted in the first round by them. And then even an international signing in there. And they've got a guy in the pen, Keegan Aiken, who was drafted in the second round. Like, it's just fun. And I love seeing teams that do that. However, before their roster research page looks like this, they generally stink because you're waiting for all these guys to come up. So it's not fun to watch these types of teams then, but like times like now, it's awesome. And I love it.
And of all those guys you mentioned, Cedric Mullins, the only one over 30. So not only are they doing it,
and barely over.
Not even close to 31 yet. So not only are they hitting on their picks and developing these guys, but they've done it so many times in such a short time frame that this is now it's go time. It's exciting to see.
Yeah. And they've got two prospects at 13 and 14 on MLB.
Yeah, they're not done.
On the MLB rankings that are coming up very soon. And Kobe Mayo played a little bit last year. I don't believe Sam Basallo has yet, but yeah, they've got two more coming up. Like, maybe some of these guys get traded. I don't know, but
it's not the end of the world if they do, though, because they'll get traded as they're still like a prospect in terms of.
Yeah, they'll actually get good value out of it.
And then you get a proven middle.
Yeah, it's not like their salary.
Middle lineup hitter or top end, like reliever or starter or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So of those guys that they drafted, who's your favorite? Well, I know you love Mountcastle, but I can't imagine he's your absolute favorite of these starting guys.
I mean, it's hard to go anywhere but Gunnar Henderson. He's one of the best players in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, to be contrarian and not pick him or Adley, I love Colton Cowser.
Yeah. I mean,
dude, he was on that just absolute run last year.
I don't know how you dislike any of these guys.
Then I feel like he kind of cooled down, but I think he got hurt.
Yeah, he is so good.
Like Westberg could turn out to be, as far as hitting goes, one of the best third basemen in the AL this year, and he's hitting 8th in their lineup. Like they just have a stud lineup top to bottom.
Yeah, and guess what? He also might lose his starting spot if Kobe Mayo comes up and is good.
Yeah.
Like they have
maybe Mountcastle loses.
No.
Kobe Mayo is listed as third base, first base, so that's the only reason I said that. But
I don't see that happening. But
yeah, what's fun too is that Sam Basallo guy, I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, but he's also listed as a catcher, first baseman. So that would be kind of wild if they've got two stud catchers in both Adley and this guy.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches. This is like
having two good catchers.
This is how to run a team.
You probably DH one.
Like this is just A+ work by the organization across the board, and now they're legitimate World Series contenders on a budget.
Yeah, but I agree with the how to run a team as far as building prospects, but they didn't really spend a whole lot of money this year to make their team better. Not that they necessarily had to, but like I don't know, but I don't necessarily love their rotation. Like they could have made it better.
Yeah.
Like they still rank well and grade well, but like Zach Eflin being your ace is not the sexiest ace in the world. Grayson Rodriguez has had some signs of goodness, but also kind of stunk a little bit last year and the year before. Charlie Morton's 41. I don't really know who Tomoyuki Sugano is. He just came over from Japan, but he's 35. And you never know if that kind of, you just never know when you get one of the Japanese or Korean players coming over, because it's kind of a different game over there. Sometimes it doesn't correlate to the MLB, but then you also got guys like Shohei who just dominate and are possibly the best.
They also have Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells.
I feel like they could have
injured as well. So it's not that they don't have bodies. Yeah. Like that's my point. It's like, yeah, they could have gone out to get an ace, I guess, but then like, what do you do with all these other dudes when you could save the money that you would have spent on an ace, and now you might be able to retain one of these core hitters in a couple years.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily mad at them for not doing anything, but like, I don't know. I just feel like they could have done something, especially with all these guys being so young. Like they're just now starting to get paid. Like after this, or I think Adley's going through arbitration now. But really, the only ones that have are Mountcastle and Mullins, which they could have signed extensions. I don't know. I didn't look up their contracts, but like Gunner's still team control. Kaiser, Westberg, obviously Holiday, Kierstad, Grayson Rodriguez, like all these guys are still under team control. So you're not spending a whole lot of money right now. Now's the time to spend the money.
I disagree. It's
All right.
easy as that. No,
You're
no,
stupid.
so I think their team as is good enough to win a World Series. And I would
Yeah, I
rather
don't disagree
save
there.
the money now because you don't need to spend it. And then instead of going after like putting all your eggs in the next 2 years of trying to win a World Series, now you have 8. I like my odds with this team over the next 8 years over spending now and having like, yeah, of course you could like front load something. But at that point, you're going to get a 35-year-old starting pitcher, and they did that. They went and
Yeah,
got Charlie Morton. Like, that's all you can spend for if you want the
yeah.
money off the books by the time
Like
you have to sign these guys.
can you still
Yeah.
hear me? My computer just is frozen up right now. All right. I was trying to pull up Spot Track to see if they've extended any of these
I
guys
think
yet,
Cedric Mullins signed an
but
extension,
again, my computer just
but
froze.
I
So
do
we're
wish
good.
that was on here,
Yeah.
my
All right.
cheat sheet, but we'll get better
All
in the
right.
future.
That apparently that page is just freezing on me. So that's not going to work. I don't think any of them have really signed, right? I think Gunner maybe has signed longer
I don't know.
term.
I'm not a big contract guy. I am when it happens, but I don't.
Well, you
I
should
don't.
be.
I don't remember them. My memory's like
Yeah.
terrible. I can remember like certain plays
I
because I
think
see it
Cedric
with my
Mullins
eyes.
has, and yeah, so Gunnar Henderson's still pre-arb. All those guys are. It looks like Adley went through his first arb too. So like they haven't even locked any of these guys up either.
Yeah,
But
it's not quite Braves esque.
I think they will. They got new owners too. But all right. So the rest of their team. So we've already discussed adding Tyler O'Neill. I think them adding Gary Sanchez as a backup catcher was a good move as well. They did add Charlie Morton. I guess I'll say Ramon Laureano. The guy has shown some flash of stuff in the past. But the biggest ones I like were the Andrew Kittredge and Patrick Sandoval ads. Kittredge will come in slate right at one of the as a righty specialist, or I guess technically lefty specialist as he throws righty. Um, Setup role, and then you got that Keegan Aiken guy I was talking about earlier as the lefty setup. And then Patrick Sandoval. Wait, why aren't I seeing him anywhere on here? Anyway, moving on. But key departures, losing Corbin Burns is a big one.
Patrick Sandoval is on the Red Sox, so you
He
probably just
wasn't.
had him on the wrong team.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I put him on the wrong list. My bad. All right, let's get rid of that. I didn't think that sounded right, but I do like Patrick Sandoval. So
he
anyway,
made a list
losing
somewhere.
Corbin Burns and Santander. Yeah, and I know Kimbrel hasn't been that good of recent, but losing those three, I mean, those are three pretty big
Yeah,
names.
but they also get Felix Bautista back.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
And like having
All right.
Yennier,
I don't really have much else to add. Their bullpen is
very
really
good.
good.
I was going to say having Yennier Cano like not in a setup role like that just shows the strength of their bullpen. So
Yeah, and Sir Anthony
yeah,
Dominguez.
like those are really good arms that would be on a setup role at minimum on 90% of MLB teams.
Yeah. Like the worst rated is, well, outside of the long reliever, which that guy's just an innings eater, not necessarily supposed to be good. But outside of him, Gregory Soto's ranked the worst, but that's still at 117.
Yeah.
Like that's still
When
really
your
good.
worst guy is a lefty who throws like 102, you're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do want,
All right. Do you have anything
well,
more to
just
add?
because we have a little bit different opinion on how to approach this team, like moving forward, if we play GM for a day,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good thing to reach out to the Quackers about to weigh in on it.
Ooh.
Thoughts on that? So just weigh in on
Yeah.
what you think the Orioles should do, how they win a World Series now, how they project out for a dynasty. Just would love to hear your all's thoughts. Settle the debate.
Bet. Bet. Yeah. Let's get those comments flying. All right. Are you ready to move
I
over to the
sure am.
Yankees?
The Yankees.
All right. Well, and to add on to your comments, we'll be way more active on our social media stuff here very soon. We have not been very good at it because
We got
we're just
we
trying
got
to
things to
kind of
learn.
figure out the format we like. Yeah, we have so much to learn. I've been like all of these are edited by myself, and it just takes a while to do. Learning a program I've never used before, but I'm starting to get down to where that only takes a couple hours now, and it's a lot easier. So now I'll have a lot more mental bandwidth to do a lot more social media. But most of them are made. I haven't made a Twitter handle for myself. I'll probably just use the main one, but all of that's made. We'll be way more active on it here very soon, and you should look forward to seeing a lot more of that. And that way too, you can leave comments like Jake just suggested, and be in contact with us. All right, let's do it. Let's move to your your 2024 AL East division winning New York Yankees.
You want to start this one off?
Please
Oh,
start.
dang it.
Sure,
Yeah,
actually.
take it.
No, I'll start. I'll start. All right. So key additions, key departures. Um, my computer just froze up again, so give me a second, please. Uh, but key additions, you got Paul Goldschmidt, Cody Bellybaum, Max Fried, Devin Williams, and I'll include Fernando Cruz, even though he's probably not too much of a household name. And then key departures. You got Gleyber Torres, Clay Holmes, and Alex Verdugo. That's it. No one else. Just kidding. Juan Soto, big person to be leaving this team. I would venture to say that everyone would agree he's the best hitter in the league. So obviously that's going to hurt. But I think they pivoted very well in not winning him. Which I still don't believe the whole, oh, nobody had his number. We couldn't be in contact with him. Get out of here. Fuck off with that. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I even asked a Yankees beat writer, and he was just like, yeah, how the hell was that possible? Anyway, I do like their ads. Devin Williams obviously is a stud of a closer. Max Fried had a great year last year. Cody Bellinger, your boy, also had a good year. Goldschmidt's kind of declining off, but if I remember correctly, he had a great end of the year. And he's still got some more in the tank, even in his 37, 38 year season. What I do like, and it's my key prospect for their team, it's really only one because they only have one in the top 100, but it is Jasson Dominguez, outfielder. He's number 21 on the MLB prospects. He is slated right now to start in left field. Everything you hear about the guy is that he's really good. I didn't pull his minor league stats, but the guy just has nothing but good to say about him. He's a switch hitter, plays good left. And do I have anything else I want to discuss in there? I don't believe so. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Jake.
Yeah. In terms of the additions, subtractions, Juan Soto, obviously, completely can't disagree. Obviously, that is like a enormous set of shoes to fill. I think they did as good as anyone could expect with Bellinger coming in, and then on top of that, they replaced Rizzo essentially. I know he was hurt a lot of last year, but Rizzo unfortunately
Oh yeah,
declining.
I meant to put him on my key
Yeah,
departure.
and they replace him with Paul Goldschmidt, which I think is makes up a little bit for that Juan Soto departure in the starting lineup. So I think they did all they could do there. Obviously, Soto can only play for one team, even if they're both in New York. And then they add Max Fried. So I think their staff got a lot better as well. And then they add Devin Williams from Milwaukee. So there's a lot of good pieces that they were able to put together. They still have Marcus Stroman. I'm interested to see what they do with him. Right now, he's kind of odd man out. He seems to have gotten on the bad side of the organization, which he is known to do.
Yes.
Everyone says he's such a good guy, but then somehow, um, after a couple years, he just annoys the crap out of everybody, and everyone's like, "You're just not worth it." So it's like a self sabotage thing. I don't know. He should probably stop that. He's
Yeah. I did see an article recently about them talking about moving him to the pen, and I think he's okay with it. But I don't know if that's in a long role, if it's a shorter
I don't.
leverage role.
He
I don't
doesn't
know.
seem like a pen
But
guy to me. It's not like he
no,
has like two really
I feel
good
like
pitches.
his personality, he wants to be a starter.
Well, just his stuff. Like he's a sinker baller. Like he gets a lot of weak contact. Like at the pen nowadays, like people want strikeouts. They want guys who throw gas. Um, like, does he really want to be relegated to innings eater? Maybe he's at that point in his year where he just in his career where he just wants to win and he'll do whatever. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. I don't know. I'm not in his head. I don't want to be in his head. Because it seems like a disastrous place to be, to be
Seems like there's a
honest with
lot going
you.
on in
Yeah.
that head.
He
Yes.
really does like self sabotage himself after he's been somewhere for a little bit. I don't know if he just needs to change the scenery again, but I'm kind of interested to see what ends up happening there.
Yeah.
Do you think they win the division?
Um, so I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a very close, which I believe you agree with, but I feel like it's going to be very close between them and the Orioles. Um, I do think that the Orioles leg them out to win the division. But I don't know. Like I said before, I feel like they pivoted well upon finding out that Juan Soto was not coming back. They made some good additions with obviously Soto being a huge departure, but outside of that, not a huge fall off. Like Clay Holmes was really good for them, but Luke Weaver was kind of taking over his back of the bullpen role, and then you add in Devin Williams. It's like, what are we gonna do with Clay? And then um, he leaves, signs actually with the Mets, which I thought was funny as well. And now he's going to be starting. So I don't know if he was just saying, I'm not coming back if you guys don't want me to be in the rotation. Uh, but he was really good. I believe he kind of started to stink last year. Let's see if he gets better with the Mets. But um, I do like their team. I think they're very good. Uh, I like the Orioles team a lot more. To your point, I do really like this rotation. I like their rotation more than the Orioles. Um, their bullpen's not as strong as the Orioles. I think it's crazy that Luke Weaver is power ranked 20th on Fangraph
One
just because
good
he was
year.
so bad at the Reds. I know I don't mean to just bring up the Reds with every player, but the guy would start a game for us, give up 5 runs in the first inning, and then it's just every single game that happened. However, we had a winning record when he started. Like his record was bad, but we would somehow come back and win the game. I don't know if that just motivated us to get more runs in, whatever. Um, but no, I just don't know if they have enough to hold on and stick with this division winning. I do like the addition of Bellinger a lot, especially with their smaller park. I think he'll continue to hit the ball very well. Probably have a lot of home runs this year. I don't know how Goldie's going to do, but again, it's a small park. Anything can happen. And then I look to see Aaron Judge, their leader and captain, to continue to just be one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. Um, but I definitely think they're going to be missing Soto a lot. One thing I did want to point out with the addition of Bellinger, it's good for them because they now get to move Judge to right. You don't risk him misplaying something in center field like he may or may not have done in the World Series. But also just to keep him healthier. Center field, you're just running everywhere. You don't have a line or a wall to know where it is and not run into. You could run into other players, but it's a more injury prone outfield position of the three. So getting him into right field is much better. He's not a great fielder, but you're not going to put him at DH because you have the ultimate DH in Giancarlo, aka Mike Stanton. But yeah, I mean, I think they had good additions. I don't think they're going to win the division, but they definitely and certainly could.
Yeah, my biggest concern is that this lineup turns into just a slightly better version of what we talked about with the Blue Jays. Of, hey, you have some really good guys up top, but like, what happens if Jason Dominguez is a rookie and doesn't play super well? What if Paul Goldschmidt and Stanton are old and just start to deteriorate? Like Giancarlo, like can't
Regress.
move.
Yeah.
He can still hit the shit out of the ball when he hits it, but there's equally bad at bats. Like if he hits like 205,
beer.
if he hits like 205 or something this year as your six hitter and you're just stuck with that, like there's ways for this lineup to get ugly. Whereas the Orioles, I think there's really no way for that to fall apart. Because if one or two guys don't hit, oh, okay, here's another prospect. Oh, here's like a first round draft pick who's just on our bench because we don't have enough spots to play him. And then like the main concern with the Orioles was their starting staff, but then we talked about the depth and the quality of their bullpen. So like they have minimized the potential negatives of the weak points on their team, whereas I don't think the Yankees can say that as much. Obviously, it's still a good team. I expect good things from them, but there's a avenue for the Yankees season to fall apart at least like for a couple weeks at a time, and that might be all the Orioles need to distance themselves and never turn back.
Yes. Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. I'm curious to see if DJ LeMahieu ever shows any sort of sign that he could be good again. Like he's just not been good for a long time. Because he's just like your ultimate utility guy. He can play anywhere in the field outside of catcher. He could probably figure that out. But I just remembered when I used to do fantasy baseball a little bit more, I would always make sure I drafted him just because you could slot him in at any position. And he was just a great versatile guy. And you never had issues with days off because you can just throw him anywhere and you're fine.
Yeah.
Right.
I got one more thing on this team. It's outside of the chalk.
Okay.
How do Cody Bellinger and Giancarlo Stanton get along in New York under that pressure of the media?
I kind of forgot about that.
If things don't go well, like what happens? I don't know.
It's Bellinger's wife used to date Stanton, right?
Something like that. I'm gonna look it up. Yeah, they got a shared lady.
I'm pretty sure it's that way.
I think it's Bellinger's wife used to date
shared lady. Yeah,
Stanton.
Mike.
Yeah, she might not know who Giancarlo is. Yes, we are correct. It's Bellinger's wife used to date Stanton. A real cleat chaser.
Yeah.
Just like New York's not the spot I would want to be if things go sideways, and then all of a sudden you got to deal with that on the side as well.
Oh yeah, can you imagine like if Bellinger just is like really shitty for some reason, and then like what some of the fans will be yelling at him?
Oh, I know. Like you just like.
I mean, I guess they're on the same team, so I don't know if a fan would really do that, but it's like,
well,
I would imagine in any away ballpark, you're going to have some drunk fan being
Yeah,
like, "Hey, Bellinger, your teammate used to bang your
yeah,
wife."
exactly.
Like,
But like, guys
I'm
have slow
sure that'll
starts all the
happen in
time. Like, you
Cincinnati
go to New
whenever they
York,
come
like
here.
if
But
the weather's terrible and you just run into a cold spell, like, what if you're only hitting like a buck 80 coming out of April? That doesn't mean you're going to have a
yeah,
terrible year by any
I don't know.
means, but you get those New Yorkers in your ear, and all of a sudden you're not just
The more casual fan will start screaming
yeah,
at
and
you.
you're not fighting like tooth and nail against the pitcher that you're facing. All of a sudden you got all this crap going around. I'm not saying like Cody Bellinger seems like the kind of guy who would get bothered by that. He seems pretty in control and calm, but it's kind of an elephant in the room or in the clubhouse. Just wanted yeah, we couldn't get through that without
Yeah,
mentioning a little bit of pop culture, I guess, is kind of that genre of reference. But
yeah. Uh, and then the only other thing I wanted to add with the Yankees, because we didn't talk about them, but Jazz seems to have found a new home, and it seems like, which is I think is crazy because he's just such an eccentric guy. Like you would think that he and the Yankees organization wouldn't get along, just because they're very professional and down to business, and he's just very outspoken and says what's on his mind. But I'm glad to see that that's a good fit, at least getting him out of Miami because they're just horrible. Um, I am excited to watch Austin Wells again this year. He was very good for them last year and was a huge part of their success. Um, and then continuing to watch Louis Skeel continue to prove himself and make his name known. That guy was very good for them last year, and it's also great to see Rodon pitching well again as well. That's all I got, unless you've got anything to
no,
add.
I'm good.
All right, now that we are done taking a dive into each team, let's do our own predictions of the standings, brother.
Yeah,
So, according to Pacoda, which I will share um, on the screen here in a second, but as of right now, they have the Boston Red Sox finishing last at 80.1 wins. The Rays at fourth at 82. I'm just going to round at this point. The Blue Jays at 85, which is fun. Baltimore at 89, and New York also at 89. But when you actually get into the decimals, they're actually 89.1. Baltimore's 88.8. So it puts them right at the same time. So it's kind of exactly how we were talking about it, to where it's those two are going to be very tight. Um, I think you were trying to say that you think the Blue Jays are going to tank off and finish last, unless you think the Red Sox are going to be there.
I don't think the Red Sox finished last. That seems I don't know how they're getting to that. With the addition of Crochet, like I just don't. I think they did enough to not
Yeah.
be last. I think one of the Blue Jays or the Rays fall apart. If the Rays fall apart, it's because they are too reliant on young players that aren't performing. It might have like injuries to that starting staff. I think the most likely scenario, if a team completely falls apart, I do think it's the Blue Jays. So if
Okay.
I had to put them in order, I would say the Orioles win it, followed by the Yankees. Then I would go probably the Red Sox hang on to third, although I think the Red Sox and the Rays at the end of the day will be very similar. And then I'll put the Jays in last.
Damn. So I agree with Baltimore, New York at 1-2. Um, did you say Boston at 3?
At this point, I don't even remember, but yes.
I think I want to go Boston, Toronto, Tampa Bay. But I think it's very similar to how Pacoda's outlook looks. It's going to be a very tight race until the end. Like I don't, although I'm putting Tampa Bay last, like I could still see them winning 80 plus games. Um, but I personally, I think for sure there's at least two wild cards in this division. potentially they sweep the wild card and take all three. I think outside of because I don't know. I feel like the Blue Jays have to at some point perform and actually be a good team. But
There's no trash in this division, that's for sure. They all
no,
have something that can get them over the hump and squeak out a wild card.
yeah. So as I kind of alluded to in the West, like I think that they're probably only going to have one team, and I think it's the Rangers. I think Houston could fit that bill, and maybe Seattle, but I don't really see anybody in the Central getting crazy, which we'll talk about that next time. But I could very well see a situation where there's 4 of these 5 teams make the playoffs.
Yes, I agree with that.
And Pacoda does disagree. However, they do kind of have 2 of them, 2 wild cards. They do have the Mariners slightly edging out the Blue Jays. But to our predictions, I think me and you both agreed. We think the Mariners are going to fall apart. So do you think any of these teams have what it takes to make the World Series? I do. I think at least Baltimore and New York definitely do. I think Toronto could. They've got good pieces. And I think Boston could too. And honestly, Tampa Bay could as well. I don't even know, man.
You've gone too far.
I don't know.
You've
I
gone
mean,
too far.
you never know who's going to show up in Tampa. Like a lot of
Yeah,
these guys just come out of nowhere.
if you know anything about me, I'm like, all right, yeah, you might get to throw a hat in the ring, but that's it for a lot of these teams. Like, yeah, every now and then you have like a random wild card team get in there, but more often than not, like the wild card teams you're scared of are like if the Orioles come in second or the Yankees come in second. Like that's the team you're concerned about making a run. I don't think there's enough offense, especially in October, for like there's too many outs in these other lineups.
Yeah.
Like they
Do
have good
you?
pieces, but you need like a Daniel Murphy type like hot streak from one of them to like
Freeze.
carry you. Yeah.
Yep.
And like of course that can happen. But if we say that like anything can happen to every team, then like what's the
All right,
point of
Kevin
doing the
Garnett.
podcast? Anything
Because
is
it's
possible.
fun, Jake.
Well, I agree with that, but like you got to draw the line in the sand somewhere. Like we're not going to
Yeah.
be right on all of these things, but you got to plant the flag.
Yeah. So do you see the Yankees being the AL representation again?
In the World Series?
Yep.
No.
Or sorry, I meant to say the Orioles, but
Yes.
okay. Who do you
Yeah, I mean,
think
I
is?
think the Orioles are the better team, and that's why I think they win the division. And like, obviously, yeah, anything can happen in the 7 game series. But yeah, if I had to pick a team that I think is most likely to go to the World Series from the AL, it's the Orioles.
Yeah. So we can get into it after we finish the AL in general, like once we finish the Central next episode. But I don't see you putting any of those teams in the ALCS. But so who
The
do
White
you think
Sox.
then? All right, that's a clown answer, bro. All right, so we kind of agree, kind of disagree. We definitely agree on 1, 2. We're a little bit more jumbled through 5.
I don't
But
even think
I
we
think that
disagree on that. Like, they're all going to be close.
yeah,
They're a toss up.
this division could very well be within 10 games from top to bottom.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's dumb. But it'll be a very fun division. I like the West. Like I think the West will be fun, especially when you've got the Angels and A's kind of being sneaky with some moves.
It'll be easy to watch, too. They're in the Eastern time zone for us, at least.
Yes. Thank God. Um, do you have any? I haven't looked at the bets for this. Do you have any bets for this division?
I can. How about that?
You don't have to. I can always edit this out.
No, no, it's okay. Um, I'm not placing any bets outside of like the bet I'll do to just select like all division winners and then like a World Series champ.
Yeah.
By the time we get through this,
Yeah, we'll have
so
to
I'm
make
not
a
placing
Ducks
any of
bet.
these. Yeah. I'm not placing any of these, but I'm pulling up the division odds right now, AL East. So the Yankees are plus 100. Obviously, the Orioles being plus 250. I would like that.
Yeah.
Uh, it's funny, though, that Pacoda has the Red Sox coming in last. However, they're plus 440, whereas the Blue Jays are in last on FanDuel at plus 1300. The
That's
FanDuel
wild.
odds outside of the Yankees and the Orioles being flopped are exactly how I laid it out,
Yeah.
top to bottom. So
Okay.
if I had to place a bet today, I would take the Orioles to win the division.
All right.
And
I think I
if there
agree
was
with
a
that one.
if there was a bet for a team to finish better than what they are, obviously the Orioles being a close kind of 1A, 1B situation, I won't go there. But I would say the Rays at plus 950 to win the division are like that sneaky team that might shock some people.
Okay.
If I need to put out like a
Like
hot take of some
a
sort,
decent value or some sort of hot take.
right?
Okay.
It's all based on
Um.
starting pitching. Like, there's good offenses. Like, do they have the starting pitching to turn all of those important games into like
Yeah.
a pitcher's duel? In which case, I think they have a chance.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I really like Orioles at plus 250 there. That I think that's going to have to be our pod representation from this division.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and Yankees are even plus 280 to win the AL, with the Orioles then at plus 600. So that
Yeah.
could be a fun one to do as well.
Yeah.
Rangers at plus 1,000, by the way. All right, do you have any final thoughts on this here division, the AL East?
No, I think it's a good division. It was fun to talk about. It's
Sure was.
not going to be as fun to talk about the Central,
No, but
but we'll get
there's
there.
some fun and scrappy teams. I just don't think they're as
I'm
good as
excited for the
everybody
deep
thinks
dive. I
they were
think,
from last year.
yeah, I think it will be a fun podcast to prep for because there's going to be a lot of names that we aren't necessarily familiar with on some of those teams.
Yeah.
And it's wide open because, I mean, we'll get into it, but there's not like a clear top dog. At least I don't think so. So I
Yeah.
think it will still be fun. Don't get me wrong, but like it's going to be some bad baseball, most
Yeah.
likely.
Well, they've got some good teams. It's just, are they?
Yeah.
Like they're
Are
close
they,
to
or do
being
they
really
just rack
good.
up wins because they get to play teams like the White Sox?
Yeah. Yeah. Only it was like crazy seeing the four teams, their head to head record against the White Sox last year. I think the White Sox had like 10 total division wins last year
Yeah, it's
in
embarrassing.
the 52 you play. Is that? Yeah, 52. That's
Embarrassing.
crazy. Very. All
We'll
right.
get more into that next time.
Yeah, we sure will. All right. So that was talking AL East. We'll see you guys next time for the AL Central. See you, Quackers. You mother
Later.
Quackers. All right. See ya.